remote town of Pripyat, Ukraine, on a seemingly ordinary April night in 1986, the world bore witness to an event that would forever alter the course of history. The Chernobyl disaster, often shrouded in mystery and fear, stands as a haunting reminder of the catastrophic power of nuclear energy gone awry. In this video, we embark on a journey into the heart of darkness, uncovering the chilling details of what transpired in Chernobyl and exploring the enduring legacy that still casts a shadow over the world today. As we delve into the causes, consequences, and extraordinary human efforts that followed, we'll come to understand that this tragedy was more than just a nuclear disaster. It was a story of heroism, sacrifice, and the inexorable power of science to both harm and heal. Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant, situated just north of the town of Pripyat in the Ukrainian SSR, was a formidable complex that played a central role in the unfolding tragedy of 1986. The plant consisted of 4 RBMK reactors, an acronym for the Russian reactor Bolshoi Mощnosti Kanalny, which translates to high-power channel-type reactor. These reactors were designed for electricity generation and were considered state-of-the-art in their time. Within this sprawling industrial facility, reactor number 4 would become the epicenter of the disaster. It was during the late hours of April 25 and the early hours of April 26, 1986, when a seemingly routine safety test was initiated. The objective was to assess the reactor's capability to maintain cooling power during a shutdown, a crucial aspect of nuclear plant safety. However, a series of critical errors, coupled with unforeseen complications, would lead to a chain reaction of catastrophic events. These events would thrust the Chernobyl nuclear power plant into the annals of history as one of the most infamous sites in the world, forever altering the way we perceive the power and potential dangers of nuclear energy. As reactor number 4 exploded in the early hours of April 26, releasing an enormous plume of radioactive material into the atmosphere, the fate of the plant, its workers, and the surrounding region was sealed in a tragic moment that would reverberate for generations to come. The fateful night, April 26, 1986. The ill-fated experiment. As the experiment commenced, operators made a critical decision to reduce the reactor's power output. This reduction was significant, and it led to an unforeseen and perilous chain of events. The reactor's power level dropped precipitously, causing instability and creating an environment ripe for disaster. In a moment of intense vulnerability, the reactor was unable to maintain a stable temperature, a condition that was exacerbated by design flaws inherent to the RBMK reactor model. Frantically, the operators tried to re-establish stability by inserting control rods to regulate the reactor's power. However, this desperate action had the opposite effect. Instead of stabilizing the reactor, it precipitated a sharp and uncontrollable power surge, setting the stage for the impending catastrophe. In the early hours of April 26, 1986, reactor number 4 would erupt into a catastrophic explosion, unleashing an inferno of devastation and the release of lethal radiation into the atmosphere. Explosion and release of radioactive materials. At precisely 1:23 a.m. on April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant experienced a catastrophic event that would send shockwaves throughout the world. A deafening explosion erupted within reactor number 4, tearing through the night with unimaginable force. This explosion was so powerful that it literally blew the massive concrete lid off the reactor, exposing the inner sanctum of nuclear devastation to the world. The immediate vicinity surrounding the reactor became engulfed in an inferno of flames, adding to the chaos and destruction. The release of this deadly radioactive cloud marked the beginning of an environmental catastrophe of unprecedented proportions. The brave and dedicated plant workers, firefighters, and first responders found themselves confronting an otherworldly nightmare. They battled not only the raging fires but also the invisible and deadly enemy of radiation. Many of these heroes operated without adequate protective gear, driven by their duty to contain the disaster. Tragically, in their valiant efforts, they unwittingly exposed themselves to lethal doses of radiation, setting in motion a wave of acute radiation sickness that would claim their lives in the days and weeks that followed. As the plume of radioactive materials billowed into the sky, it began its ominous journey across Europe, leaving a trail of fear and uncertainty in its wake. The world was soon alerted to the grave situation at Chernobyl as countries far from the epicenter detected elevated radiation levels. This revelation prompted international concern and intensified the urgency of containment and cleanup efforts. The explosion and release of radioactive materials in Chernobyl marked the beginning of a crisis that would reverberate for decades, leaving a deep scar on the Earth and its inhabitants. Immediate response. As mentioned earlier, the immediate response to the Chernobyl disaster was a harrowing and heroic effort by plant workers, firefighters, and first responders who found themselves thrust into a nightmarish situation. Tragically, many of these first responders and plant workers suffered from acute radiation sickness, a debilitating condition caused by exposure to high levels of ionizing radiation. The symptoms included nausea, vomiting, severe weakness, and in some cases, death. Their selfless dedication to containing the disaster came at a heavy cost, with a significant number succumbing to radiation-related illnesses in the days and weeks that followed. Despite the tremendous risks they faced, the immediate responders played a critical role in preventing an even greater catastrophe. Their heroic efforts included dousing the fires, evacuating nearby residents, and attempting to limit the release of radioactive materials. They were on the front lines of a disaster that had global implications, and their courage serves as a poignant reminder of the human capacity for sacrifice in the face of unprecedented adversity.